We are talking with Nicholas Burston, who is the cousin on the father's side to Anthony Carter, who was the 11th victim, according to the list that makes up the victims of the Atlanta child murders. Um, those happened between 1979 and 1981. And there were 29 to 30 total, depending on if you include John Porter in the list or not. And anyhow, so we're talking with him. And this is honestly, this is such a huge case that it's something that probably needs to be talked about. 100 times or more. I mean, really, there's so much information by the time you end up breaking down all the cases. Um, I met Nicholas back in 2021, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of an event that we did for his family. When we were going through, and I was looking for the graves of all of the individuals, I ended up finding that there were 8 of them that did not have headstones, and so Anthony Carter was one of them. And so we did a memorial for him, and it was amazing. And so anyhow, there were a lot of things that came out of that event. And it's one of the reasons that I wanted to actually talk with Nicholas, because this is, I have a very strong, I don't know, I guess I have a very strong opinion when it comes to talking about these victims. I don't like lumping them together. I don't like making them into a collective, because part of that ends up being um, basically a device for making them as individuals who go into a collective. They become nameless, they become faceless, they just become an Atlanta child murders victim, and that's it. They don't become, they're no longer Louis Jeter or Milton Harvey or Darren Glass or Anthony Carter. They're not those people anymore. They're just the Atlanta child murder victim. So when we were doing that event, I was very adamant about the fact that we were going to talk about Tony. And I made sure that all of our media contacts, that they knew that they needed to talk about Tony. They needed to talk about Tony and call him Tony, because that's what he went by with his family. And so those were like the little things that really mattered, to me, just because I wanted to put something, I wanted to give something back to the family that, hang on, let me put Monica in. Hey, Monica.
Hey there, sorry you
Uh,
guys having
You're good.
difficulties with my phone.
Um,
How you doing?
yes, Jennifer, this is one of those stories. So, anyhow, I would like to turn it over to Nicholas, and we'll just kind of give you guys some information, and we'll talk about. I guess we can talk about the things that we think are real and not. I just noticed my name says the professor. Um, so Nicholas,
How you doing, Miss
you-
Amy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm excellent. How you doing, Miss Jen, Andrew, and Monica? Good evening.
Hello.
I'm
Good to
good.
see
Good
you, Nicholas.
evening.
I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity. And my cousin was named Anthony Carter. He was victim number 11 in the Atlanta child murders. But like Amy said, when you say child murders, kind of lump them together. Anthony originally from Hogansville, Georgia, and he grew up here. He spent lots of time with us, me and him and other friends played, football together. He was a speedster. His smile is like, it was golden. His smile, really, his smile, he was so fast. And a lot of kids envy that in Hogansville. And we love to see him play football. And a lot of people, they love being around Anthony. But, Anthony had it a little tough, He was staying out here with his grandma. And, his mother was staying in Atlanta at 898 West End apartments, which later Anthony would move to, once I tell you what happened here. Anthony, his root was here. Anthony, the type of young man back then. We'd be playing hide and go seek, and we played for about 2 or 3 hours, and then all of a sudden, one of us had to go use the restroom. We come back out. Anthony's gone. He left us. It's like, okay, he moved on, but hey, we'll see him again. And with Anthony, he had some kind of bad luck down here as well. He stayed with some relatives, and he would he would run away from them and sleep in the ball field. They called the West End ball field in Hogansville, Georgia. And it was one winter night, and it was frigid. I say it had to be about 25 degrees out. And a lady came and told my mom that, hey, Anthony's up in the baseball field. You might want to go get him. And my mom rolled around there, picked him up and brought him back to our house. Anthony must have stayed with us for about probably about 2 days before his mom, Vera Carter, she came and got him from our home. And she basically moved him to Atlanta to 898 West End. Anthony was 9 years old when he moved up there. Might have been 8. He going from a city where we could walk around and play all day to sun up to sundown to a city that he didn't know, but he had to go with his mom. I understood that. And the sad part about that day when his mama came and got him, that probably the last time I ever saw Anthony Carter. Anthony, to me, he was special. Sometimes it's tough. It's been 43 years, but still, it's like you live in the same community that he walked through. It kind of get to you. For a 9-year-old to get killed, And you and myself, I was only 10 years old at the time. I was a year older than Anthony. I was Anthony's cousin by his father, Larry Burston. His mom was Vera Carter. Larry was the kind of gentleman that, he wasn't there for his son. That's my uncle. That's my mom's brother. He wasn't there for his son, in and out of jail. He didn't want to take responsibility, stealing, robbing, doing stupid stuff, and not being there for Anthony. Anthony's mom, she had her issues. Some say most of the documents say she was a streetwalker. She did what she did to make ends meet. Which, that put Anthony in a dangerous situation, I think. Anthony walking the street, searching for food, neighbor leaving his food on the trash can. And he'll come home 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes with no food. So I do believe that parents should be held accountable, just like the murderer that killed Anthony should be held accountable. I believe in watching your kids, seeing where they're at, and that didn't happen for Anthony. And then when we tried to do that, his mom took him away, took him up there. I don't even think Anthony was up there a year. It was July the 5th, 1980. We got a terrible phone call. Me and my cousin, Kevis Harris, Sheldon Harris, and my brother, Nicholas Burston, we was out playing fast pitch baseball, practicing. And my older cousin, Sarah Jenkins, called us in the home. And she told us, say, y'all sit down there. It had to be something bad, Because every time you turn on the TV, a child missing. They found this kid. They found that kid. you're terrified. And we didn't know Anthony was missing. So when we came and sat down, my cousin Sarah said to me, she said, we got something to tell y'all. Anthony had been kidnapped by a murderer, just kidnapped. You know, she didn't know what to say. We country people, it's quiet. And we all sit on the floor stunned because you remember that golden smile and the energy that he shared with us. We were just scared. That's right. That was a frightening moment I know for me, because I was close. I'm like, sleepless nights. You know, this is my friend, my cousin, and now you're telling me he's missing. But the news get even worse. It get worse. You know, they tell us, you know, it had to be. This the only thing that rattles me as the date Anthony was missing and the date Anthony was returned. Anthony's mom, Vera Carter, 1984, gave a statement to Miss Misery Glover. And on July the 5th, about 1 o'clock that morning, you know, 4th of July was the day before. Vera told her son, well, Anthony, but she called him man. She said, man, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to lay down for about an hour, and then about 2:30, I'm going to get up. We're going to go to the laundromat. And Vera said, okay. Anthony said, okay, Mom. But she said, Anthony, I don't want you to leave the yard because we really going to go to the laundromat. So Vera lay down. About 2:30, Vera had an eerie mood come over her body, and she started screaming, man, man, man. And she heard no one. Man was gone. So she go to the neighbor, Miss Lynn, and she asked Lynn, she said, Lynn, have you seen man? She said, man was down here helping, you know, put on the brakes on my car with my husband's boot. But then I turned around, like I said, we played hide and seek. Man, he had walked off, and she didn't see him no more. So Vera intensely started walking. And remember, it's 2:30 because she jumped up. 2:30, she started walking the neighborhood, West End, Harris Home Projects, Morris Brown. She walking all the way around Atlanta, pretty much looking for her son. And I say that for a reason. She walked around from 2:30 to 4:30, July 5th, 1980, looking for her son. And then she found she didn't see him. He was nowhere. So she called a friend, Buford Lee Rosser, to give her a ride to help look for her. She told him the deal that, you know, she had told Anthony to stay in the yard, which Anthony was a good kid. You know, he pretty much listened. But somehow he had disappeared. And would he take her to look for Anthony? And he agreed, yeah, you know, because they know about the murders. They ride around pretty much to probably about 8 o'clock. So they said, hey, we might as well go down to the police station, go down to the Atlanta police station. Vera walk up to the clerk, ask, you know, I want to report my son missing. And it wasn't going too well because the gentleman was like, has he been missing for 24 hours? And Vera was like, no. Well, we can't do that for 24 hours until he missed, till he been missing for 24 hours. And Vera started getting a little snappy. He's 9 years old. He's out there by himself. You know, she chippy because that's her baby. All she did was just go to the laundromat. So the officer kind of, He said, okay, let me take a description now. She said, what was he wearing? How did it look? And then Vera go on to say he had dark hair. He was wearing plastic shoe with burgundy pants with no shirt. And so they got the description. Miss Vera went on home. And by then, it was about 10 o'clock at night. And she started calling the police. She started calling anything yet. No. So July 6th come around. She laid down. She stayed up all night worried. APD sent an officer out. And, he seemed to be like, he don't care. He probably tired. He tired of looking for these kids from what she said. So he was a little chippy. So he like, so where I need to go? And Vera got a little snappy, like, why would I? That's why I call you. You need to be, figuring out where he's at. So she finally got him to calm down, and he wound up saying, okay, it's July 6th now. We going up on 24 hours. So she called the missing people unit, and a lady came out, talked to her and said, yes, he's been missing for a while. So, we're going to have to go looking for him. And they start, took another description where Anthony was wearing, and Vera, pacing back and forth, nervous, scared, want to know where her baby at. Went on. It got to the point where it's got all the way to, to Monday, July I think it was the 10th, 1980. Vera went out to, call into the hospital, calling around looking for her son. Nothing at all. So by that time, that night, Vera was sitting up in the window. Her electric had been cut off. So she just sitting up in the window looking as the police officer come over to her, knock on the door. She just sitting there looking at the knock. So the officer just started to turn around and he started to leave. Then Vera said, hello, I'm right here. He said, she like, why you sitting by the counter? He said, well, I ain't got no electricity. My light's been cut off. He said, okay. He said, but Miss Carter, I got some bad news. She said, don't even tell me. She said, we found Anthony. She's like, where is he? He's on Wells Street. And she's like, is he alive? Then the officer was like, he's beat up pretty bad. Then she, she hear he beat up pretty bad. She started panicking, get on her shoes, gonna run to Wells Street, which is like 3 or 4 blocks. Then he said, hey, Miss Carter, he's not at Wells Street no more. He's in the mall at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. And she's like, at Grady Hospital in Atlanta? Yes, you might need to go down there and check it and see if that's make proper identify your son, So she called a friend, Barbara Fountain. Barbara came by, pick her up, took her down there. She gets down to Grady. The clerk was very rude, nasty to her. Very so, I'm here to see Anthony Carter. And then she's like, ma'am, we can't let you see Anthony Carter. They said, well, I'm the mother. She said, no, right now that we got prescription for anybody to see Anthony Carter. And then, Vera, going off because she wanted to see her son. It's 3 days, she's going crazy. So Vera wound up what she had to do. She had to go get a court order just to get her own son from Grady Hospital. They weren't going to get just to get him. So she gained access to him. And so she wound up going back to the hospital July 11th, 1980. And it was an eerie walk to, really was a scary walk for her to the march. She said it was a narrow, dark, cold. When she get out there, it's just like she nervous. So they, showed the ID, they pulled whatever they did, pulled them out, and they told her, say, Miss Carter, now we only want you to see his face just to identify her. And she agreed, but she knew she was gonna do something different once she seen the body. So they put him out. She said yes, she crying. And then all of a sudden she snatches the white sheet off of him. And she said he was cut from mouth to mouth, stabbed like several times in the side, several times in the chest, several times in the back, throat slit. Half his left arm and his elbow were detached almost. But when you get there, that Atlanta police report, it say Anthony was just stabbed 2 times. And they wind up getting the body, bringing it back to Hogansville, Georgia. And she had went and bought a suit for Anthony. Thought it was going to be an open casket. Got back to Woods Funeral Home. They like, Miss Carter, we can't show this body. He got maggots coming out of his mouth and nose, and he beat up pretty bad. We can't show it. So they wound up having a closed casket funeral, which I remember slightly because I was 10. I really remember that, and that's my Anthony story, He meant a lot to us.
That's way more than I've ever heard you say. That was good.
Hey,
Seriously, I'm sitting over here being your cheerleader, Nicholas. That was it was wonderful.
Hey, when I talk about Anthony, it's the truth, it's the feeling,
I know.
That's how I feel.
I feel like maybe I haven't heard it before because in other moments, like in other, just even like with talking with reporters and stuff like that, it's kind of more of a controlled environment where, they're kind of leading you on what to say and what they want from you and stuff like that. So I loved that.
Hey, man, I didn't really tell why I got into this because, it was like August 19th, 2000, I think 19. Mal Bottoms invited me and my mom downtown to meet with other family. That's when they first opened up the cage, but that ain't why I got in there because I used to always see they never talked about Anthony. And that bothered me. I'm like, he mattered too, and that was the most hurt thing. I said, if I ever can do anything, I just want them to mention his name like they did the rest. And first of all, I also want to say much love to all the other victim family. Much love for them because they're important to me as well. They went through a lot. All the moms out there, I'm so sorry for your pain.
Yeah, that's one of those things that has bothered me. Because what I know that you know this part, but when I started going around looking at graves, one of the first ones that I looked at was Alfred Evans, and that's because he was in a cemetery by himself. And anyhow, when I went there, the lady who owned the cemetery, she was telling me that she said the mom never visited here, and she said she always believed that was not her child. And see, there were some incidences with her child too that are questionable about whether or not that was actually him. And in that particular case, it made me sad because then she told me that the mom had died about 6 months before. And I just sat there and thought about it. I thought about all the moms that have gone to their graves not knowing what happened to their children.
Correct. It's like, I'm not exactly sure how many moms left, but I hope they get justice. And if they got justice, just learn the facts.
What
And
it,
help them. Because you got moms don't even know, they never seen files.
yeah.
They never.
Um, there's Camille Bell,
Right.
Catherine Leach,
Captain Leach.
Venus Taylor. Eunice Jones is still alive, isn't she?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I know so. Yes.
And then Sheila Balthazar, depending on which way you swing on that one.
Hey, I don't. That's what they do. I do. I don't knock the family members. They. Hey, it was a rough time, man.
So I do want to talk about hide and go seek.
That's a very important.
I
left that out for a reason.
Yeah, I knew you, but you started out with hide and go seek, so you left a little teaser in there.
Yeah.
So tell us why the game hide and seek is so important to this narrative.
Because Vera Carter walked around from 1 o'clock to, let's say, looking for her son all day, and that's your aunt. And Anthony Carter is playing hide and go seek with Jimmy Edward, and Jimmy Edward knew that Anthony went missing. When he called your aunt and say, "Well, Anthony's up here, you can stop looking for her." Looking for her. When you think that,
I mean, yes.
Unless you had other plans.
Okay, so just to back up here, Jimmy Edwards is a cousin on the maternal side, and anyhow, he had he's on record. You can go watch. Investigation Discovery did like a 3-part special. Toward the end of the first segment of that, there is a part where Jimmy Edwards comes in, and he's talking about the kids, and then you see him taking a stroll with the people as he's going through the area, and he's like, yes, and we were playing hide and go seek, right? And what's important about this conversation that he's having in this piece is the fact that he says he gets very specific.
Very.
And that's like your first tip when somebody is potentially lying. I'm not saying that he is, but I'm saying that when somebody's potentially lying, they tend to overcompensate. They tend to give too many details and all of this. So, and it was an interesting detail because he said there were 40 of us playing, which is a very specific number. And then he says, Tony went around the building. And then he says, and then when I counted afterwards, there were 39. So it was like this story of, well, it's interesting that you're the one that's in control of counting. You're the one who's in control of keeping up kids. But then I thought about all the times, and I've asked everybody this question. So again, if you're watching this, chime in, please, on the chats. When you played hide and go seek, did you guys ever stop to count how many people were actually there? Or did you happen to just kind of come and go as you played? I mean, sometimes kids would go home and change, clothes or go get a snack or whatever. But who counts? So that was a very weird little detail to add in. And so it was one thing that just made it seem, I don't know, it was just very suspect. And so from there, it became one of those things of kind of looking at what else he has said. And in talking with Nicholas over time, there are some things that stand out that are odd. But I want to back up to what he said to police. because what he said to police in an interview that he had with them was he's telling this story. First of all, he's connected to several of the victims. Okay. Admittedly, he is connected to Anthony Carter, Jojo Bell, Timothy Hill, and William Barrett. Okay, so that's 4 of them. Now, it's my understanding that his mom's take on how many people he knew is very different.
That one.
So
I laughed because they had a memorial at the airport, and believe it or not, me and him have bad blood. I think I ain't gonna say it, but I think he had something to do with Anthony murder. He's in the paperwork. Long story short, I took him with me to the airport. They did the memorial pictures for the family, and this guy gets halfway to Atlanta. He started freaking out. He told my cousin out of nowhere, "I hit you in the back of your damn head." I'm like, what? All of a sudden, I'm like, okay. So we get to the airport. He started acting even weirder. He started talking. We went out to eat. We left the restaurant. Started driving on the road. A little kid in a goat car. He was on the side of the road. The guy said to me, Jimmy Edwards, you should run his ass over. And then he said, I don't stab somebody before, right? And I'm like, okay. Why are you saying that? I didn't understand that, but he's weird. And
it is weird. But even if none of that can be substantiated, because we don't know, he could be talking a big game. I don't normally think that people go around making those kinds of brags, but the thing that is absolutely not true is his timeline. And I'm going, and this is very, very important, because in this investigation discovery piece and in this other, like the other stuff that he does. Stop it. My dog wants to tear open water bottles. I'm so sorry. Anyhow, in these pieces, he constantly, he says that it happened on, I think it was July 5th, that he went missing. He turned up, deceased on December, July 6th. He was picked up according to the autopsy report on the 7th, and they actually conducted the autopsy on the 8th. So the thing that's wrong with his story is that he said it was literally this 2-day period, give or take a few hours. Okay. But we're talking about the 5th and the 6th, and it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And it's wrong because the science says it's wrong. When you go and you look at Tony's autopsy, is it okay if I read it?
Yes.
Read the parts? Okay. So on Tony's autopsy report, it states on there some very specific things that are important to note. Because again, let me tell you something. It gets hot as hell here in July. It gets hot. I'm not going to discount that in any way, shape, or form. Okay. But the level of decomposition that Tony was at is not a 2-day period. Okay. And I'm just going to read you a couple of the bits and pieces from the medical report or the autopsy report that it's backing up exactly what it is that I'm saying. Okay. So you have things that are normal at the beginning of decomposition. Like it says there's, putrefaction, gas formation, things like that. That's normal, right? But the thing of it is that it says there is moderately advanced decomposition. Okay. So we have the words moderately advanced. Moderately advanced does not happen overnight. It doesn't. It doesn't happen in a 2-day period. And it goes on to say that he has the gaseous distension, he has skin slippage and maggot infestation and distinct smell. Okay. Now, in other parts, it has on there extensive skin slippage, massive maggot infestation seen in the nasal and oral cavities. It says in another place that it's heavily infested with maggots, difficult to interrupt or to interpret the nature of the injury. Things like that. So you've got it in the trachea, you've got it in the bronchi. That doesn't happen overnight. The life cycle of the fly is not that quick. So his whole account in this is wrong. And that's the thing that bothers me the most. And then the police, when they did, in fact, go and talk to him, and they were talking to him and getting him, they said, would you do a polygraph? And he said,
No.
Exactly. He said no. And why did he say no?
Because he's scared he was going to lie.
He said, I don't want to fail it. And
but at first he said he would take it. Remember, they came and looking for it.
Yeah, but he didn't. And he did admit he didn't want to fail it. So it's like, well, why are you going to fail it if you're telling the truth? It's not the truth. So in 2021, I had his autopsy report reviewed by the body farm in North Carolina, along with the Troup County coroner. And I just asked them very simply, I said, what do you make of this level of decomposition? And they were totally in agreement that this was 3 to 4 weeks of decomposition. So right before we did the memorial, which is the whole reason I brought the memorial up in the beginning, because I wanted to circle back to this. I knew, I was on the back end of this, y'all. I did not want any part to do with it in the news. You'll see my name in news articles and stuff like that, but I did not ask for it to be there. I did not want it there. That is Nicholas's doing. Okay. That is him. But I made sure, because I knew that there were still going to be these interviews and stuff like that. I made sure to listen very closely to what it was that he had to say. And I made sure to record those. And in one of the interviews, he said very specifically, we didn't know where he was until he showed up a month later dead. And that right there was the first time that he has slipped and said the truth.
And he always say, I say, they can't, Jimmy Edwards, he exaggerates. He gonna tell us that the APD came and got a 16-year-old to verify the body when Miss Carter say she ID'd the body. But this would make me so angry with him when I asked him about it. I say, how was Anthony? He said, well, he was sitting up on a trash can like a dead dog. I'm like, don't say that no more, man. He said he was sitting up on a trash can like a dead dog. I'm like, if somebody loves somebody like he claimed he did, oh, I love Anthony. But in the original police report, he called Anthony lazy, didn't like the hustle. He beat him up the night before he got killed. Fact.
Which was not on July 5th or July 4th.
Right.
I'm just saying it wasn't. Because again, the timeline doesn't match up. And that's one of the things that is the biggest problem in these cases. First of all, there's so much truth that has been hidden. There's so much truth that's been hidden, not just to the public, because I don't necessarily think that we're owed anything, but these families are owed it. And I think that they deserve that truth. But there is so much that has been hidden. There's so much that's been changed. There's so much that has been just, I don't know. It's a real disgrace, honestly.
It's a disgrace.
It really is. And it makes me sick and sad at the same time. I mean, there are things that, like if we do this again, I have some things that I can play that will, like, recordings and stuff like that, of people that I did interviews with, and that can show the things that are still wrong with this case. And I'll give you an example. In 2005, they reopened the case over in DeKalb County, and there were 5 victims out of DeKalb County. And I asked, I was talking with one of the people, and I asked them, very specifically, like, did you guys do things like, did you talk to William Otten? William Otten is one of the suspects that was in this case that a lot of people don't know about. Everybody just hears Wayne Williams. That's the only name they really know. They might know the name Charles Sanders, but that's only if they, really kind of followed along with Luby Jeter and the 8100 stuff and that, all of that. So, but they know the name Wayne Williams, right? So William Otten is important because William Otten actually called Rockdale County Police, and he called Stone Mountain Police, and he confessed to killing the kids. Killing some of them. And he stated that it was because there were some, Black children, young men who had raped his daughter. And it was very strange. So in 2005, I was asking him, because William Otten was in his district and everything. And I thought, surely they would at least look at that. But he said, no. He said, we were instructed to talk to Wayne Williams and Ricky Hawkins. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, and what was your take on this? And he said, well, Ricky Hawkins is really just a pervert, and he was in prison for child molestation. But he said, I don't think he had anything to do with all of this. And then he said, and Wayne's either guilty, crazy, or both. But that was like the extent of it. They didn't go beyond that. They weren't looking at anybody else. And William Otten is just one of so many suspects in these cases. And again, it's just a shame.
Real shame. There's so many suspects. And they go back to playing hide and go seek with Jimmy Ellis. He says, like, hey, it's 40 kids. But when you put articles out and you asking people who played hide and go seek with the 38 other people, the 36 other people, you can't find them. They know what to be found.
We even started a website at one point.
Right.
We started a website at one point. It was 38more.com, just to see if anybody would submit their name and be like, yes, I was playing hide and go seek that day. Nothing. Crickets. There was nothing.
Nothing. And the people I talked to that lived in Harris home grew up, they're like, hey, we didn't play hide and go seek in Harris home. We played it at the John Hanley Bars Club where he worked. And kids came up missing and brought back. It's, it's crazy.
It is. The whole thing is. And again, like I said, there's so much more to this that needs to be, exposed and talked about and everything else. But it is one of those things that I do believe everything that does happen in the dark will come to the light.
Correct.
And all it took in that particular case, and again, I'm not saying that Jimmy did anything. I'm not saying that Jimmy, I'm not saying anything like that, but I'm saying that Jimmy at least knew that timeline was wrong. He knew.
He knew. And all these people around you got killed. You know what he called himself? The living legend.
Living legend.
I'm like, okay.
Ew.
Ew.
It's crazy.
That is what that is. Oh, listen, I mean, in all honesty, when I was doing the memorial, um, he started a lot of problems with the family. Prior to, he was telling them that I was trying to take advantage of them. He was telling them that I was trying to get money from them. He was telling them all kinds of things. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we're doing the headstone and everything for free. And like, the whole headstone thing was infuriating to begin with because this never should have been an issue.
It never should have been.
Never should have been an issue. And listen, Tony was 9 years old when he died. And not only did Tony not have a headstone, Tony was buried in a cardboard casket.
Yep.
And he was buried in a cemetery where the guy did not keep proper records. So to this day, there is absolutely no telling where Tony is.
He's still missing.
Still missing. So his headstone is not even where he is. That is a piece that was donated to the family by the local church. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And
Wow.
it's crazy. And like nobody really want to know. I'm like, these people, his family live all their life. Not throwing salt, but I'm gonna keep it real. They live 15 yards from where Tony's supposed to be buried, and they don't know where he at. 15 yards.
That was a whole fiasco too, in and of itself. Because when we were out there, basically what I did was I had Nicholas called me with one of the family members, and I was explaining it to her, and I said, "Why don't you guys just do like a town hall or something, and I'll come down there and like I'll talk to everybody. They can meet me, they can hear me, they can see me, they can ask me questions." And so that's what we did that day. And when I went down there, the coroner was there. The sheriff was there. Is the sheriff or chief of police? And the one or two guys from the different funeral homes?
It was two different
funeral home guys. And so they were also there, and they were and the coroner was there too. And they were all there willing to, answer whatever it was that they could. And we met at the church first. And like I said, he had like been overly dramatic about, he'd never even spoken to me before. He started like saying all these things. And they met me. There was one family member who was like, what'd she say, Nicholas?
And she's like, somebody in the church for it?
Yes.
I know y'all think I did it, but I ain't did nothing. And she got up and walked out. I'm like, what is she talking about?
No, she yelled like some fuck this or something. It was because I was like, lady, this is church. Wow. Calm down. But there was an aunt that was said that, he went to her door that night and that she turned him away. But again, by the timeline, that's not true. So I don't know if that whole like, I don't know. Maybe that was like her conscience, like coming out and saying like, something's wrong here. I can't take this pressure anymore. I don't know. But after we got finished, we went over to the cemetery, and family was perfectly fine at this point. We get over to the cemetery, and there is a discussion about which plot Tony could possibly be buried in. And it was like, you have some of the family who's over here at plot A, and then you have kind of Jimmy Edwards and a couple, maybe one or two others who was like, it's over here, it's number 2. And then it was like, they were looking at the records that the guy had left for the churches when he donated the property. Again, the records were really crappy. And from there, like, it became it was a whole debate. Then they had neighbors walking down, and they go, weren't you here at the funeral? Do you remember which one he was buried in? Like, nobody could remember. Yeah, nobody could remember, but they remembered like the funeral itself and they remembered that portion, but they just didn't know where he was. And all of that was just, I mean, and that still saddens me too. Cause the one of the funeral home guys had a little like prod that he was sticking down into the ground to
Right,
try to see if he would hit something, but there was absolutely nothing. And he did say, like, the ground is so wet right here that it would probably all just be gone anyhow.
right. Like you see, I think they think we were gonna get evidence out about it. There's 50, 40 some years, ain't that evidence on the body. But you know, me and several other people, we know where it at. We rode by on the bus every day. They brought his body back to Hogansville, where most of the kids are buried in Atlanta. And we know where that, but they say we wrong. Now you know, past this awesome kid every day, and you remember where that spot is, but they tell you wrong.
Yeah.
He's buried probably about 200 yards from my front door.
See, it's sad, but that whole cemetery had a whole lot of brush that needed to be cleared away and stuff too. Because I remember when I was looking at it, they were like, "Oh yeah, there's still graves back behind all of this," and that was grown up like taller than me.
Right. Actually, it was two other kids down there that lived in Harris' home was Anthony cousins, and they was murdered as well. One was ran over by a plumber or something, killed him in the road. The other was shot, and they was up in those bushes, and it's just strange, you know, all these kids getting killed up there at that time. What was really happening? That's the main thing.
Who knows? I mean, that's one of the things that I have a problem with the list in general, but I think it was the media's way of controlling the narrative.
No doubt. No doubt.
And we can talk all day long too about some of the suspects that I think are
Yeah,
but we won't right now.
I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate everything y'all trying to do to help us get the word out. But I think right now, as families of the Atlanta child murders, I think the big thing should be now, where's our DNA testing? When are we going to get the results on that?
Yep.
So Nicholas, I'm supposed to ask you about Wolf.
Who,
Wolf?
who said that?
Tracy?
Wolf.
She said she went to school with you.
Tracy. What a last
Oh,
Yeah.
she said Wolf walked the streets of Hogansville.
name. Yeah, that's
Is that Nicholas's pet name?
no. She's being funny.
Matthews.
She's being
Matthews,
funny.
she said.
She's being funny.
How funny is that, Nicholas? That somebody on my TikTok went to
I
school
know
with you.
Being funny. She know I would laugh, cause I know who she. That's a high school friend.
Small world.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very small world.
What's she
Um,
doing?
yeah, I don't really talk a whole lot about like my connection to Wayne and stuff. And that's something that I do want to do more. And I want to do more to, help you guys advocate and help you guys do whatever it is that you need to do.
I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Always here.
Hey, we just gotta make some noise. Hopefully, the city of Atlanta, Fulton County.
Where's the DNA?
Where's the DNA? That's gonna be the slogan. You know,
I,
where's the DNA?
and just so people know about the DNA, when they reopened the case in 2019, they allegedly sent off for DNA testing, and the only two that they could test for would be William Barrett and John Porter. And anyhow, they sent it to a lab called Sorenson, Sorenson, and you can look them up. They have some misconduct claims by Texas and Kentucky. at minimum. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it happened. Those claims happened prior to the DNA being sent. So it always made me wonder, like, who was actually funding the DNA testing and whose idea was it to send it to Sorensen? It's just, I don't know. It's just sketchy to me. But, and here we are, 5 years later. And then you've got Jason Jensen, who is a part of the Intermountain Intermountain Forensics or something like that. That's a DNA lab. Also, they did the DNA testing for the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre people who were unknown, and that's over 100 years old, and that's been like long done. So what's happening with these two that are 40 years old? I mean,
They solved the case. They said they got their man. That's what they look at it.
But that, I have a real problem with that. I have a problem with cops saying we've got our man and then turning around and opening up a case, because that alone is contradictory to we've got our man, and I get that you could be just reviewing it and stuff like that, but you just don't keep it open for this long. And then on top of that, they didn't even close them all out to him anyhow. I mean, they closed out the pattern cases plus Nathaniel Cater and hold on. What, not Wayne. What's his name? Jimmy Ray Payne. And then 10 others. Or 12 others. And but there were still 5 that were unaccounted for. You've got all kinds of discrepancies there too. For example, how did Alfred Evans become a pattern case when he was connected to Edward Hope Smith, but Edward Hope Smith wasn't?
Good question.
It makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And then we have other things that, I don't know. I've got a whole list of questions.
There's a lot of stuff to be asked and answered.
But there's nobody to answer it. That's the problem.
That's fact. But I think it's people out there in the community that's still living. All of them ain't gone. It's people know something. But a lot of people, those people ain't got internet. You know what I mean? I'm the true believer. Walk and find them. Look them up and go to their house.
There's so many people that I wish were still alive in this case that could happen with. I wish I could just talk to Wayne's parents.
Yeah. Sure.
I do. I really wish I could. Honestly, I would ask his mom about, I'd ask him how he got so bratty. No, he's an only child, so I get that. I would ask her about the Cheryl Johnson thing, because I did talk to Sidney Dorsey. And for those of you who don't know, Sidney Dorsey was one of the lead detectives. And he told me about a conversation that he had with her. And I would just want to talk to her about that. And what would I ask his dad?
But why would she lie? That just don't make sense to me. Why would she lie about phone number that at the time didn't mean anything?
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. I don't think she would have, because if she would have lied about it, she would have been complicit in whatever was going on.
It's like, right. They're like, she didn't know. Somebody left a phone number.
I need to know why, why were they still like doing the testing so late in the trial? Why? I mean, I feel like it would have been a one and done, like you would have gotten your answers, and did you need to keep going and going and going and going? You've already convicted him at this point. That's why I think Tony Axum was like dead on the money for wanting to go ahead and go in, because he knew the state wasn't ready.
My thing is, how many more kids got killed after he was locked up?
According to Chet Detlinger, over 60. I think it's 63.
And we don't hear nothing about those kids. And some of them died the same way our children died.
We can have a whole conversation about Chet Detlinger too. Because he was the former deputy chief of police, and he was a suspect at one point as well. Just another thing that people tend to not know. But it's just, I mean, there's so many things, and there's just so many players and so many questions, and I don't know.
Hey, we just keep fighting till we get the right answer. Hear
Yeah.
something. That's the most important thing, hearing something.
Well, it's funny because Jen earlier today was reading me an article about the Justin Gaines case out of who's over that case? Is it Buford? I mean, is it Hall? Who is it?
I think it's Gwinnett, Duluth.
Oh, I
Duluth?
guess it would be because it happened at Wild Bill's.
Yeah.
But he's the one who went missing after Wild Bill's, and he has not been found since. And anyhow, so she was reading this article, and it's, the mom said that she was hoping that, I hope this podcast will just trigger that one person who might know something. And that's the way I feel about this particular case. And I wish more people did talk about it. And I wish there were more documentaries on it. This case, this case, for some reason, has people with very fierce opinions on very little information.
Fact.
It's just not as well documented as other cases are. And, and I don't know. It's important to know those things so that you can have the big picture and you can see something that might go, oh, that I knew that person, or oh, maybe it's this person. Just that little something that just triggers that light bulb. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Oh, I just wanted to know what you have to say.
Well, I'm curious about Wayne Williams and the Klan and what he thinks about that.
About the Klan?
Yes.
I think it's real. Because why would they destroy the files, the 8100 files? Why would they destroy them?
So, for those who don't know, the 8100 files were files where they were recordings that were done with an undercover, and it was with the Sanders family. And Billy Joe Whitaker was the undercover person, and they destroyed the recordings. And there are transcripts of these recordings, but the recordings themselves, whether or not they still exist or whether or not there's copies of them, that's debatable because I've heard it both ways. Do I think there could have been some involvement? I do not believe that there is one killer or one set of killers for these kids. I believe that they are independent. Like, for example, take Tony, for example. I don't think that Tony fits into the narrative with other victims.
I don't even think he belonged in Atlanta child murders, period.
Well, I don't either, but I don't think a lot of them do. I mean, I think they need to be separate lists, and some of them are a list of one. But I could be wrong. But this is a case where you have, these differing MOs. You have, a gunshot victim. You have a couple of stabbings. You have a blunt force trauma. You've got positional asphyxiation, which is breaking the neck, like with a fall. You have manual strangulation, So you've got these different MOs that are happening, and there's no rhyme or reason. We can also discuss the fact, too, that there's nothing saying that any of these kids were taken, kicking and screaming.
Let me ask you a question, Miss A. How many of the kids had food in their stomach when they was
I would have to go back through all the autopsy reports that I have to answer that, but I can.
Okay, that's interesting. Looked like somebody fed them and then did what they had to do to them. You know.
Well, now I do think that that's an interesting point too, because I think some of the kids were definitely kept for longer purposes. And I don't know. I mean, the 70s was a weird time period. And the city of Atlanta was also like downtown had bathhouses and peep shows and, you know,
Everything.
porn theaters and, you know, literally, yeah, everything. So, you also have some people who are connected with, you know, connections to pornography, things like that. And then you have just good old fashioned pedophiles. That's said very tongue in cheek, by the way. But like the weird part about the pedophiles, you know, in this particular case, Tom Terrell, for example, he bugs me because he's on the news talking about Timothy Hill, and that was one of the victims. And Timothy Hill was a teenager, and he's talking about how Timothy Hill was supposed to come back over and provide him with oral sex for his birthday. And it's like you're talking about this on the news. That's weird to me.
Very weird. I remember
Very
that.
weird. Oh, that's weird.
They were messing with these kids, and a lot of people seen it, especially Larry Marshall. He was with Uncle Tom. I think they played a large role in this.
And
Uncle
Larry,
Tom was a sick man.
yes, and Larry Marshall is another person who's very key. And see, like I said, this is one of those cases where you need like multiple strings going to multiple different people and places and things.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
You know, another thing that I'm really curious about, which I don't know if Wayne's ever told either of you, is what was the object or thing that fell into the water in the Chattahoochee River that made a big splash?
He didn't
That's
stop
it.
on the bridge.
He
He
didn't
didn't
stop.
stop on the bridge?
He did
Not at
not
all.
stop on the bridge.
Never.
Okay.
They testified that he never stopped on the bridge. In fact, they sent people down to I think it was Haiti to go see if voodoo levitation was possible for him to have thrown that body out of the vehicle
While driving.
while driving.
Wow, that's crazy.
Voodoo levitation.
Huh. They sent actual experts down to Haiti to do that? Like they wasted resources to do that?
Yes, they did.
Wow, that's crazy. I'd be curious to know how much money they actually spent on that investigation. That's really crazy.
Ooh, don't even get people started on the whole money topic because that one is a touchy one too, because they raised so much money from celebrities and they had federal money and everything else. And they claimed that his trial cost $2 million. And I don't believe that because Wayne's trial started on December 28th, 1981, and it was completed on February 28th, 1982. So 2 months. And you're telling me that his trial was $2 million? No. Just no.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I'll tell you something else that's interesting about the whole bridge incident, and that is the fact that if you watch the HBO Missing and Murdered special, they say that that Wayne was going less than 5 miles an hour, so he didn't trigger the expansion plate on the bridge. So we're talking dead of night. He was pulled over, I think it was like 2:53 in the morning or something like that. And anyhow, so he's allegedly going so slow that he's not triggering this plate. I want to know, first of all, how without Google or something like that would he have known to go less than 5 miles an hour? But in the dead of night, and I know that the river would have made some noise, but a 1970s engine is so loud that even if, I mean, we could have said that maybe he was coasting across and, do the whole, this is way before your time, Andrew. But the whole pop the clutch thing and then you start your car, even still, that didn't happen. He was in an automatic. So you have this loud engine that's still out there. And again, nobody. And these people who were under the bridge were rookies, and they were not even cops. And this whole thing was a mess.
One thing about that also, which is interesting, the cop said somebody said he was a professional swimmer and he knew the sound of a body hitting the water. Well, if that was the case, why didn't he jump in and try to get it instead of wait 2 days later for the body to surface? That to me is so confusing.
He was so busy seeing ghosts out on the water.
Crazy.
It is crazy. The whole thing is crazy. So yeah. And Andrew, backing up to Wayne and the KKK, I can tell you that in terms of Wayne and other people, he does not tend to really talk about those kinds of things, because Wayne is like laser focused on his case and his case only. So like anything that comes after that doesn't matter. So he is like, and it's not, and we're talking about like the legal procedure aspect.
Yeah, I've never really looked into this case in depth, and I don't have an opinion on whether I think Wayne is innocent or guilty, or whether the Klan was involved or not. But I guess I should look more into it, because it's definitely an interesting case, and it's an old case at that.
I think that not having an opinion is probably the best way to come into it, in all honesty. Just because it seems like I said, there's so little information that's been put out there that you have people who just are very certain that he's either guilty or they're very certain that he is innocent. And, it's like they don't have an open mind to see one way or the other.
My mom and I talk about this case a lot, and she made the comment, well, the murder stopped when he was arrested. And I say, no, they stopped reporting on them when he got arrested.
And that's true. They didn't stop during that time period. The other thing that I think is important to note, and I'm not like discounting anybody's loss of life or anything like that, but this was not a period of time where there was like a major influx in deaths either.
Right.
So in this particular respect, we're talking about the fact that this was a normal year, but now you have all of these cases that are being reported, and it makes it kind of look like an influx. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's painting that narrative. It's wagging the dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Narrative. That's exactly right.
And it's funny because I was young as hell when all that went down, but I still remember the commercials. I still remember that we had a curfew. I still remember, bits and pieces of that case, and I never thought he was guilty. And I thought I was the only person on the face of the earth who thought that until I met Amy. Because all they had was a fiber. Like that doesn't, and a splash. That's it.
Well, to be honest, they had more than that. They had Caucasian hairs.
Right.
Nobody talks about that.
Nobody talks about it.
Literally, whose Caucasian hairs are they?
Yeah.
They tell you DNA wasn't, they didn't have DNA back then, but they got it now.
Yeah. So why don't they test the evidence?
Does it still exist?
It exists.
Does it?
Well, yes, it exists. It exists.
Where?
Well, they reopened the case, so they got to have something.
Yeah, they had evidence.
I mean, do they have to have something? Because they don't have to show us what evidence they have when they reopen something. The only thing they can do is, I mean, it could potentially be one of those things that's a stall tactic.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's because I don't know. I don't buy into all the conspiracy theories about why the case was reopened or anything like that. But again, could it be a stall tactic of some sort? Sure.
Right.
But there's a lot of other things that I think also need to be taken into consideration as well. I mean, there's plenty of things. I've heard everything under the sun about Wayne. I've heard he's guilty. I've heard he's not guilty. I've heard he's guilty of some. I've heard he's just guilty of knowing something. I've heard everything. I have my own personal opinion.
Let me hear.
And I mean, I do. I have my own personal opinion. But at the end of the day, it's not my opinion that even matters.
Mhm.
It's the opinion of, the courts, if they decide that they want to allow him, a new trial or an appeal, or it's the parole board, if they want to finally allow for parole, things like that. It's up to the people that are, more connected to that aspect.
Yeah.
Yes, it was reopened in 2019.
Right, 2019.
It's just sat. It's just dormant.
What can we do to get, to put pressure on them to get the DNA test? What can we do?
I don't know that there's anything we can do. The only thing, I mean, you know what? Maybe one of the best things to do is to, reach out to a journalist and see if a journalist can get some answers. That's the only thing I can really, think of other than wait it out. I mean, can they keep it open forever? Sure.
Yeah, yes. It's like they don't want, but I think the saddest thing about this whole case is, I'm gonna be real, that the family don't get a chance to see their own files.
I agree.
That's sad. I'm like, this your relative, this your blood. I don't care if the case is closed. They should have access.
Monica, was it you that was telling us about the Alabama or the federal law?
I don't know about which law.
Oh.
That just came into play about the families are supposed to. There's something about some law passed to where now, they're trying to get it passed to where if the case is closed, that the family can see the case files, but I'm not for sure where that stands.
So, Nicholas, maybe this is something that is worth looking into in terms of lobby for law changes to happen, so that if a case has been just sitting there, and they're not actually pursuing somebody that it would, compromise the case in some way, shape, or form, that they at least have to hand it over to the families.
Well, that makes sense. That's something should be looked at.
It should be.
This is something that I've come across a lot, is these families don't even get their loved ones' possessions back, even after the case is solved and done. It's just, to me, it's so wrong, these families' loved ones, they deserve it, it's just, what can we do? That's the question,
I agree. They deserve. They deserve more. They just do.
It's like I ain't gonna say they forgot them, because they did do a memorial, but you ain't give more, tell more. I'm like, if you say Wayne did it, tell us what you told the jury. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff I want to know.
Well, I can tell you what Well, first of all, they didn't do the memorial. They didn't have anything to do with it. They wouldn't even come.
They wouldn't even come.
Oh, I'm sorry. They did the new wall.
The one,
I forgot about that.
that's the one we did in Atlanta that, I appreciate it.
I was thinking about the one at the airport, and I didn't even see many people there from people lining up to pay their respects. In fact, they didn't even invite all the families, did they?
No, they didn't. They didn't.
See?
Well, there's reasons for that, and I understand about Bottom's reasoning. But I know, I thought when they had the one downtown, I really thought they didn't invite me to the memorial, and they did. But they had called my wife's phone, and they left a message, and she didn't check it till about 2 or 3 days later, and I wound up missing. But I still appreciate the thought, and I think that Mal Bottom, I appreciate it. But no, they didn't invite everybody. But I don't know their reasons. But it's a lot of stuff go with this, a lot of drama. I must say.
It is. A lot of politics, a lot of crap.
But I also say this: Fannie Willis, the new mayor, would they ever reach out to the Atlanta child murders families? That haven't happened. They've been in office now 2 to 3 years.
Well, good luck with that. Bonnie's tied up with Trump and Young Thug.
Right.
Her office is getting their butt beat by Brian Still and all them.
Yeah, but I hope she make time just to sit down with the family and tell her we ain't forgot about you. You know what I mean?
And that would be nice.
That would be nice. That's all.
And
That's all I'm asking for.
It wouldn't even be too much effort, in all honesty.
Right.
Well,
like I said, I appreciate the opportunity for y'all letting me come on and voice my opinion about my cousin Anthony Carter. It meant a lot. It meant a lot. And I hope we get to do it again one day,
I would love to do it again. Thank you, Nicholas. You're awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
You guys are awesome. Y'all keep helping us, help us finding the truth. Thank you.
there's so much more to be talked about, Nicholas. So there's definitely way more to explore. And in the future, we can, we can dig into some of those other people and talk about some of the interviews I had and stuff. Unforbidden.